certainly not robotic in their words or deeds. Sinn Fein councillor Pat Fitzgerald and Fianna Fáil councillor Eamon Quinlan. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, Damien.
Good morning.
Waterford councillors have called for the government to make breathalyzer kits available in pharmacies across the city and county. If implemented, it would mean people could acquire a breathalyzer kit once per month from their pharmacy. It was backed by Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil independent members at a meeting of the council. Sinn Fein abstained, as did independent Joe Conway, who voted against actually. Why was this motion proposed, Eamon Quinlan?
Well, Fianna Fáil has a large number of representatives, I suppose, in rural aspects of County Waterford, and Councillor James Tobin from Knocknor, I suppose, has been to the forefront in, I suppose, assessing the very changed environment that we now live in since Shane Ross's new legislation came in around, I suppose, the thresholds of how much alcohol can be in your system the morning after. So what we've done is we've been proactive. We're not criticising the law like some people have done in terms of trying to get it revoked or returned. What we're simply asking for is the government for a period of time to acclimate Irish society to this new environment that they find themselves in, to provide them with the ability so that people can be compliant with the law. Because what we have in the situation is I've had publicans on to me during the week about this motion who are now getting their rates bills from Waterford City and County Council, who are practically in tears because they're sitting there on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, no one in their pubs at all, because for a lot of people, if they have one or two, three drinks, no one knows how alcohol, I suppose, affects them on an individual level. They don't know if there's going to be trace amounts in their body the next day, and what's happening so is people just aren't taking the chance. The pub in rural and even urban communities is being washed out in terms of a place to be, and even on Fridays and Saturday nights they see that people are consuming less, because if you've got a young family and you need to bring kids to soccer or to GA the next morning, you just don't take that chance. And for a lot of rural communities, the pub was the last bastion to hold out with attacks after post office and such on, and unfortunately it's now coming under severe pressure. So we're looking to help people comply with the law.
I'll have you coming in a second now, Pat, on this. Did you aim and check with the Pharmacy Society regarding this before you put in your motion?
Well, excuse me, the motion was put forward by Councillor James Tobin, and I suppose what it was is we're calling on the government to do
I know,
this.
but can you answer the question, please? Was the pharmacy union?
I didn't speak.
You know, you were defending this motion, so yes. I presume you asked Councillor Tobin, have we actually taken any lead from the pharmacy union on this?
Well, we haven't asked to the best of my knowledge, we haven't asked.
Okay,
because
so you don't know their views about
the pharmacy union. What I want is the government to make an offer to the pharmacy union, and I want the pharmacy union to negotiate if they so wish with the government.
Do you not think you should have at least spoken to them beforehand to see if this was a practical measure?
I don't think you need to ask someone before you make them an offer if it's okay to make them an offer.
Okay. Pat Fitzgerald for Sinn Fein. Pat, why did Sinn Fein abstain on this motion?
Well, the reason Sinn Fein abstained on this motion, and it's not because of the merit of the motion is we believe is worth supporting, because I also am a rural councillor, and I realised that rural isolation is a problem, and that rural public houses are dying, and people are social outlets in rural areas are limited. So, but we sat down as the 6 councillors and we looked at the motion and we said, can we support this or can we not, as we always do with motions. And the more we spoke about it for maybe 5 or 6 minutes, and we said, like...
was that enough time to give it, I wonder?
Well, we found a few holes in it.
Right, okay.
And really...
what's your main concerns with the motion as it was proposed?
Our main concern was the breathalyzer is not a reliable indicator of the alcohol blood limit. So, like, people could breathalyze themselves and may not get an accurate reading. It's not an accurate reading. Nobody was ever convicted in this country on a breathalyzer alone. It's always a urine test or a blood test.
Absolutely, but the guards use it obviously, Pat, as an indicator. Yeah. So would the same not apply then for motorists if you're getting into your car in the morning time?
It would indicate in or about it.
Because it's the same principles, as far as I know. It may not be the exact same breathalyzer, but it's the same methodology is used in these disposable kits.
But what if you breathalyze yourself? You were indicated green, say you were under the limit, and you went down the road and you had an accident, and so subsequently you were found to be slightly over the limit.
Can I just point out that?
Sorry, who is then responsible? Is it the pharmacist? Is it the person that manufactures the equipment, the breathalyzer kit, or is it the people that actually introduced it?
Eamon?
Breathalyzers, first off, are the best option to indicate whether or not you're over the limit to the general public. But also, I suppose, to take on Pat's point, if I use...
Pat's shaking his head there.
if
He's
I-
laughing at you.
Well, I mean, you're not going to stick a needle and do a blood test at home. It's the best indicator
hope
that
not,
people
no.
have on a day-to-day basis to check. But if a breathalyzer that you use says that you're under the limit and you drive down the road and the guards stop you and they breathalyze you, they've probably the exact same, if not a similar breathalyzer. Therefore, it should give the exact same indication. It should. There's not a huge disparity between indicators. So if I use a breathalyzer to indicate, and it says that I'm below the limit, the guard should get the exact same result.
Pat, why are you laughing at Eamon there? What problem do you have with what he's saying there?
Well, look, if the state itself cannot accept a breathalyzer as a reliable set in stone indicator, nor can any member of the public, or nor can we. And like, I also asked the question at the meeting itself during the debate on the motion, had they actually consulted the pharmacy representatives? And I got no answer. And
Well, you've heard the answer this morning. It
yes,
looks like
I've heard the answer this morning, but that's the first time I've heard it. But I believe the trust in the motion to try and alleviate the problems, the isolation problems in rural Ireland is good. I've worked with James Tobin before on this in Rural Link or Local Link.
Well, why didn't you vote on it then? Because some people would say you were wrong to
I would be willing to work on this motion, or I would be willing to work with Fianna Fáil to put something together that would make a difference. I don't believe this in itself will make a difference.
Are you disappointed that Sinn Fein didn't support you?
Yes, because as I just point out, that if a guard uses a breathalyzer on you and you got a negative response at home, and he gets a negative response, he's not going to bring you to the guard station to do a blood test. If he gets a negative response from a breathalyzer on the side of the road, he's going to leave you go. But I suppose the second point is, Pat, Sinn Fein, along with every other member of Waterford City and County Council, got that motion about a week in advance. So saying that I would have liked to work with Fianna Fáil, he's got James Tobin's number, he's got my number. Where was he for the 7
He
days?
didn't call you. Some people have been texting in, we should take it a step further to bring in the law. The cars all have inbuilt breathalyzers. Text your messages to 083 3333 975. We're also recording this interview for Facebook. You'll see it up on Facebook later. Another texter, Seamus in the city, saying, you're talking rubbish, lads. If this is what you're putting forward to government, no wonder Waterford is a forgotten city. Is this maybe a wrong thing to be talking about? Is it a really important thing to be talking about? Pat?
I don't think so. No, I think there's actually more important things to talk about. And that was another aspect of this motion. And why we didn't contact Fianna Fáil is the motion was already written. It was submitted. There's nothing we could do to change what was already submitted. The only place it could have been done was in the chamber. In the chamber, we argued.
But surely you should have contacted them and said, listen, lads, what have you got to say about this? Did you contact the pharmacy unions? Why didn't you ring them beforehand?
We asked them in the chamber.
But why didn't you call them beforehand?
Why would you call them beforehand?
Well, I want to find out. I'd like to know before you go in making points.
They didn't call us beforehand and ask us, like, we're putting this motion to the council. What do you think, lads?
Have you a problem talking to each other in the council, lads?
No,
I'm not sure we're talking to each other now, but I mean,
we like, in all fairness, we in Sinn Fein will work with anybody for the benefit of the public, and there's no doubt about that. But
would you like to see Sinn Fein, just on that point, would you like to see Sinn Fein going into government with Fianna Fáil?
Well, that would be for our dish to decide.
On your own view?
My own view, if I could work with somebody, I would.
You would?
I would, of course, yeah.
You don't have a big antipathy to Eamon or his party?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Eamon, do you have a big antipathy to Pat and his party?
Pat, on a personal level, no. Working with Sinn Fein in Waterford Council on a issue-by-issue basis, I'm perfectly open to. Fianna Fáil getting into government with Sinn Fein is going to be a hard no for me.
A hard no?
A hard no.
Why? What's the problem?
Well, I could do out a list.
You can work with them. You can work with them locally.
Well, I mean,
would you not be able to say, well, listen, if we can do it locally, we can do it nationally?
Well, I'll work with them locally, because if I agree to, I suppose, a position on a subject and they also happen to agree on it, I'll perfectly allow them to vote along with it as well.
And that's the whole thing. What references are for forming a government, that you have these terms of references?
No, because I wouldn't put things like the Ministry of Justice, Defence, and various other ministries under the control of Sinn Fein.
Why
I
not?
have major reservations.
What's the problem with Sinn Fein regarding justice?
Well, the problem with Sinn Fein is that I suppose they're still not quite there, in my opinion, in relation to being a true democratic party.
Pat, you're not a true democratic party.
Well, I put myself forward for election on 2 occasions now, and I've been elected.
Well, that makes Pat superior in terms of democratic mandate than, for instance, Sinn Féin's leader, Michelle O'Neill, in the North, who was just appointed to the leadership without having any democratic election. So there is massive deficiencies there within the Sinn Féin party. I would have major reservations towards letting them in and putting them on the gears of power. So look, it's just going to be a hard no for me, and as they say in, what was that show, Sex and the City, he's just not that into you, so there you go.
Go on, Pat.
I believe that's a very arrogant answer from Eamon.
I don't have to deal with you if I don't want to.
that's quite true. You don't. You can actually say that.
And when you at the last general election, you took your ball and went home. So there you go as well.
Look, I believe Fianna Fáil have not lost the old arrogance that they had when they were actually fully in charge of this country for decades. And I believe they still think they can tell people what to do. Actually, at the moment, they're telling us to go and swear an oath of allegiance to the Queen so we can take our seats at Westminster. Now, look, for any Republican Party to go and do that would be, they can go to their electorate and tell them of their newfound allegiances if they want to, but we are not going to do that for them. And there's several things there that Eamon alluded to. We are a democratically elected party. We're actually a bigger party than Fianna Fáil. If you take both Northern Ireland and
but that's a different country.
That's maybe what you think. We and Sinn Fein
I'll agree with Pat now on this.
Do not believe
Northern Ireland is a separate
jurisdiction.
But
you may wish it's different, but that's the way it is legally.
We are the one party. So on the island of Ireland.
And Fianna Fáil are now joining up with the SDLP, so they'll have a cross.
Well, quite a lot of the
border.
SDLP has walked away, and I would say precisely because of the way that of the attitude.
Well, in terms of arrogance,
Eamon, are you an arrogant party? Are you part of an arrogant party?
For 70 years, Fianna Fáil never had the type of arrogance that Sinn Fein had for 70 years, that they basically did not recognise a democratic state that was Ireland and thought that they were a legitimate government and ran a campaign of bombings and murder and terrorism.
That's exactly how Fianna Fáil started. You were born out of bloodshed.
We were born out of a...
And you didn't recognise the Free State as it was born in 1922?
We were born out of a war of independence, and we were born out of a civil war, and then the reason why
you didn't recognise the
reason why Fianna Fáil came into existence was because Fianna Fáil wanted to pursue democratic politics. Fianna Fáil entered the Dáil at the time, and it changed the aspects of the state that it didn't like to the benefit of the Irish people. Instead of sitting on the sidelines for almost 100 years like the little rump that was Sinn Fein, that ran a campaign that had no democratic mandate. I can't go out and kill people and run a campaign and say, well, actually, lads, I think I'm the legitimate government of this country, and I have my own mandate that I don't have to seek from the people. Sinn Féin's policies for the last 70 years have never been endorsed by the people of Ireland.
Pat, a little rump of a party?
I'd just like to point out that Sinn Féin did not ever kill anybody. That's what I'd like to say. And I'd also like to say, with Fianna Fáil, they did fight a civil war against the democratic mandate of the Dáil.
Sorry, you felt that Cumann na Gael in 1924 had a democratic mandate? I guess I'm going to take out my card that says
sorry, Eamon, excuse me, I didn't interrupt you.
No, you'd stopped, and I jumped in to take your
point
on.
I hadn't stopped.
If you thought that,
I hadn't actually finished speaking yet.
Well, go for it, Jim.
Actually, at that particular time, Fianna Fáil were Sinn Féin in the 20s.
Yeah, but as the Sinn Féin's, as the Supreme Court decided in the Sinn Féin's funds case, your Sinn Féin is not the Sinn Féin of back then. It's on the books. It was decided by the Supreme Court. The Sinn Féin back then became Cumann na Gael, became Fianna Fáil.
That's your interpretation of it.
A texter texted in, lads, saying that I live 5 miles from the nearest pub. My wife and I are prisoners in our own home. This is like a police state. They're saying that really you should be allowed to have maybe a little drink, but certainly the breathalyzers might be a good thing in some respect. Other people saying the drink driving law is in place for a reason. It's up to individuals to make sure to know they're not over the limit. The figures show that there is a certain percentage of people that do die in the mornings regarding fatal car crashes that may be attributed to people being over the limit. Are you also asking the councillors, are the councillors asking the taxpayer to foot the bill? If you were looking to have free breathalyzers given out from the pharmacies, who's going to pay for that, Eamon?
Well, we're asking the government to. So actually, to answer that person's question, it would be the taxpayers. And the reason why is because we want to spend taxpayers' money, as we do in many areas, to make sure that people, I suppose, don't accidentally find themselves losing their car, getting incarcerated, which would cost, I suppose, the taxpayer far more. And we're trying to help a large body of people in Ireland adjust to their new environment and be compliant with the law.
Maria has said, I've never heard anything more ridiculous. I like to drink myself, but would people not just cut back what they drink? We don't need alcohol to survive or have a nice night out. Mick from Dungarvan says, anyone who can afford to be out drinking during the week should be able to afford to buy their own breathalyzer. And somebody says you can buy one for €80 in Halfords. Pat, do you think it's a good idea, finally?
Well, I think an amendment at the meeting, that's why we actually went from not voting on this motion to actually abstaining on it, because they were starting to go in the right direction. The original motion stated that they were going to be given out free, and the pharmacists were going to do all the paperwork, which they were never asked for. Of course, they were never asked or consulted about. But the thing about pharmacists in this country is there's quite a lot of paperwork to do anyway, because they're dealing with controlled drugs. And the amount of paperwork that a pharmacist had to do is astronomical. It's the, now for a political
Did you
party,
consult the pharmacist about that
sorry,
point of view?
sorry, for a political party to put more paperwork on pharmacists without even consulting them and asking them to give out this device for free, whereas I checked with my local shop, Sparrow shop this morning in Dunmore East. I rang them and from what I can gather, you can buy one over the counter for less than €5. Now look,
Eamon, there you
so
go.
look, where are we
What
going?
do you think of that, Eamon?
I think that's great, and I think that if the government was to bulk purchase them from any pharmacies, so that people could avail of one a month, they could get it for even cheaper. So therefore, to take up on your last person that texts in, it would be a very minimal impact on the taxpayers' funds of the government. And I think it is necessary. And as I said before, if Pat and the Sinn Fein party had an issue, they could have offered an amendment on the night. Sitting on the sidelines, I think, was unfortunate, and they could play a much more proactive role for the people of Waterford if they so chose.
What about a pioneer texting in, he's never drunk, and says, why should my taxes go towards giving free breathalyzers to drinkers?
Well, that's not how the tax
Exactly.
system works. I don't get to opt out of how my tax money is paid if I don't like certain things. It's to help a large amount of Irish people adjust to new circumstances of laws that have been brought in by a Minister for Transport that comes from a constituency where he's got a Lewis, he's got taxis, he's got Dublin bus, he's got darts, he's got trains, and he's legislating as if the entire country of Ireland is the same as that. It's not. Fianna Fáil is being proactive in helping people adjust to the new environment.
Go on, Pat, finally.
I would like to, I believe that this Eamon is referring to Minister Ross. Now, I would like to point out that Eamon's party is offering a confidence and supply agreement to the government.
And we
that
know
Mr.
that,
Ross
absolutely.
is part of. Now, this law came in 2018, so why did he not say something then in Leinster House? And how can...
Why didn't you, Eamon? Why didn't you say
But
something?
hang on, Pat's confusing the point. I'm not saying that we need to increase how much people should be allowed to drink. I'm not looking to reverse the law. What I'm saying is we're assisting people in this current time to adjust to be compliant with the current law. So Pat seems a bit confused now, I must say.
Texter says, oh my God, you're like children, lads. Why don't you grow up and start talking to each other and you could form a government between you?
I honestly think that if Fianna Fáil were to be kind of steered in the right direction, let's say, they could be quite fit for government again at some point
Would you
in the
like
future.
Sinn Fein to
he
lead
seems
you?
quite keen on
Would you
it,
like
Damien,
Sinn Fein
that's
to
it.
lead you by the hand, Eamon?
I like most people like to get led by the hand. I don't know where he'd be leading me, so I'm going to have to opt out of that. Thanks very much.
Well, I'm not sure where they're going anyway, so like, really...
We're back with more of your texts and comments, and also, could you be replaced by a robot? Could you be replaced by a robot, lads?
Well,
That could be
if
replaced
I
by the
could find a
Terminator.
robot to do my job, I already would have implied it, but look, that's where we are. But
Back in a second.